Did you know that foreign investors are quietly funding lawsuits in American courts through a practice called third-party litigation funding? Shadowy overseas funders are paying to sue American companies in our courts, and they don't pay a dime in U.S. taxes if there is an award or settlement. They profit tax-free from our legal system, while U.S. companies are tied up in court, and American families pay the price, to the tune of $5,000 a year. But there is a solution. A new proposal before Congress would close this loophole and ensure these foreign investors pay taxes, just like the actual plaintiffs have to. It's a common-sense move that discourages frivolous and abusive lawsuits and redirects resources back into American jobs, innovation, and growth. Only President Trump and congressional Republicans can deliver this win for America and hold these foreign investors accountable. Contact your lawmakers today and demand they take a stand to end foreign-funded litigation abuse.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Sunday 7.
On today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we take a look at where Sam Altman thinks AI is going next, find out how a fungus could save the oceans, and play the world's smallest violin. Plus, Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's resident tech guru, has the new Nintendo Switch 2 in his hands, and we find out what's going on with Sir Elton John and the Lords. If you're enjoying our episodes, please do like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7 in association with Metro. But before we get started, today marks World Ocean Day, something first proposed by Canada back in '92, but it took until 2009 until the United Nations formally launched it. The intention is to recognise the ocean's importance in our lives and how we protect it, and in a time of growing plastic pollution, noise pollution and global temperatures rising, it's definitely a day worth marking. This week has seen a truly spectacular breakup between Donald Trump and his former buddy Elon Musk, hasn't it? The Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink and X owner and CEO was a hugely important figure in the 2024 election, from his bizarre hyping on stage for Trump to the hundreds of millions of dollars he poured into swing states. He and Trump spent most of Thursday exchanging blows on social media, and with Elon mentioning Epstein and Trump threatening the withdrawal of Musk's government contracts, it looks like the bromance is truly over. Oh dear. One of the root causes appears to be around AI and the fact that Trump brought Sam Altman's OpenAI in as a partner for his deals in the Middle East. Altman is a relentless presence in the world of AI, a world that Elon has been desperate to gain a foothold in with his X-powered Grok system. But Altman seems to be at a different level, driving OpenAI, partnering with Apple icon Johnny Ives in a new deal to build AI tech and dominating the space. This week saw the Snowflake Summit take place in San Francisco, looking at the future of AI, and in particular its impact on business, banking and financial services. In case you're wondering, Snowflake's not a collection of people anxious about the modern world. Instead, they're a giant data cloud company who are keen to be seen as leaders in AI. That's why one of their keynote speakers was OpenAI's Sam Altman. The speed of AI's advance has been dramatic, so much so that even Altman says he's surprised by how quickly businesses and clients are integrating it into their processes.
We talk to big companies who are now really using us for a lot of stuff and say what's so different? Did it just take you a while to figure it out? They say, that was part of it, but it just works so much more reliably. It can do all these things that I just didn't think were going to be possible. And it does seem like sometime over the last year, we hit a real inflection point for the usability of these models. Now, I think we'll be at the point next year where you can not only use a system to sort of automate some business processes or build these new products and services, but you can really say, I have this hugely important problem in my business. I will throw a ton of compute at it if you can solve it. And the models will be able to go figure out things that teams of people on their own can't do.
Altman also suggested there's a potentially different user case, which isn't dependent on using AI as a sort of replacement Google or leaning on its abilities as a large language model.
The framework that I like to think about, this is not something we're about to ship, but the Platonic ideal, is a very tiny model that has superhuman reasoning capabilities. It can run ridiculously fast and 1 trillion tokens of context and access to every tool you can possibly imagine. So it doesn't kind of matter what the problem is. It doesn't matter whether the model has the knowledge or the data in it or not. Using these models as databases is sort of ridiculous. It's a very slow, expensive, very broken database. But the amazing thing is they can reason. And if you think of it as this reasoning engine that we can then throw all of the possible context of a business or a person's life into, and any tool that they need for that physics simulator or whatever else. That's like quite amazing what people can do, and I think, directionally we're headed there.
And as we said, it's been a crazily dramatic week for poor old Elon Musk. He moved very swiftly from the Oval Office goodbye to publicly shaming Donald Trump, and it's safe to say he probably won't be interested in politics for some time. The other massive story this week is, of course, the launch of the long-awaited Nintendo Switch 2. When it comes to games and gaming, there's only one man we could possibly turn to. They call him the John Terry of gaming journos, and is currently wearing nothing but free Nintendo merch. Yup, it's the Smart 7's tech guru, Will Guyatt. So Will, what's your highest score in Mario Kart World? Only joking. In all seriousness, give us your first reaction to the new Switch 2. It hit shops on Thursday, didn't it?
I'm currently not number one globally, but I am tearing through the Grand Prix series, which is amazing. The knockout race where you keep going against 24 drivers until there's just one left brings a new sense of jeopardy to the game too. Weirdly though, the much hyped open world nature of Mario Kart World just isn't doing it for me yet. It's nothing like driving around in Grand Theft Auto, but coming to think of it, why would it ever have been anyway? If I was reviewing games again, Mario Kart World is getting a solid 4.5 golden Guyatt. I really like the Switch 2. It brings some much needed improvements, updates and significantly more horsepower and grunt to follow up a console that was already smelling a bit leggy when it came out 8 years ago. The Switch 2 can play some current games from Xbox and PlayStation really well too. Cyberpunk 2077 and Hitman are a bit of a marvel on the handheld, which is going to really take it forward for new games and other experiences you can have on the console.
What's the most surprising feature?
If you love the original console, then Switch 2 is a welcome update, but unless you've been waiting for Mario Kart World or fancy playing some of the new ports of existing games to the platform, it might not be the right time for you to upgrade. The consoles are in short supply, and currently the bundle with Mario Kart World is 429 quid, which is not cheap. The console's been so heavily covered ahead of time, there's not much we didn't know about. But perhaps one of the nicest bonuses we didn't get properly told about is the fact that Switch 2 is making the experience of playing many original Switch games better, even if you're not having to pay for a Switch 2 upgrade, or Nintendo has made great play of there being an update available. Gamers have noticed that older titles like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate loads far quicker, saving a couple of seconds each level. Really nice if you're going to buy the console anyway.
Couple of seconds. Terrific, cheers. Apart from your love of your new free Switch 2, your hashtag gifted, this week's in a strange battle, which is pitching Sir Elton John and the Lords against the government. Well, what the hell is going on?
The government is attempting to push through a new law that enables tech companies to train their AI models on legally protected content. Train is a modernly euphemistic and friendly term for a concept that's currently recognised as stealing in UK law. Sir Elton and the Lords aren't taking this lying down. It's been rejected now 4 times because they say they want more protection for artists.
It does seem quite important that creativity is protected in law, so why is the government not playing ball?
This is all about the UK government wanting us to become an AI powerhouse, and perhaps tellingly, it recognises that tech companies are going to hoover up every piece of media possible, regardless of whether that happens here in the UK or on a massive boat somewhere in international waters. Frustratingly though, smashing up a 200-year-old law that protects creativity shouldn't be how this is handled, so it's good that Elton and the Lords are still standing.
Yeah. And with all the talk of Elon, let's check in with Mark Zuckerberg. Please tell me why he wants to give me a puck.
Apparently the next generation of hardware from Meta might be a new version of their glasses, but they now overlay video over the lenses, which means you'll be able to get on with daily life while using them, and that's what you call augmented reality. The puck bit is a little smartphone, or let's say original iPod-sized gadget that connects to the specs and is responsible for the content without mounting all of this gadgetry to your head. That's going to make the headset lighter and more like the glasses we're used to, and not like something from Robocop's car boot.
Okay, so VR's over then, I guess? Is AR the new thing from Meta? How's this going to play out?
Given the backlash about smartphones and the amount of screens we've got in our lives, tech companies are now trying to make their new kit less about screens and more about laying visuals or sound over our daily lives. And that's where Zuck's head now seems to be at, which is at odds to the vision he had of the metaverse 2 years ago, where we all wore headsets all day and played legless avatar tennis with Nick Clegg. The reality is that many people struggle with virtual reality and end up honking up into a bin after about 10 minutes of use. So the idea of a device that's lighter and far less less intrusive than a VR headset would be a winner for the user, but a privacy nightmare for everybody else who doesn't want to be a part of what's essentially becoming a full surveillance state. I wonder if we all end up telling Zuck to puck off.
My takeaway from that is that Nick Clegg's throwing up in a bin. Will, a pleasure as always. See you next week. Still to come on the Sunday 7 in association with Metro, Dr. Jane Goodall warns about Takugama and why we need fun guys to help save the oceans. As we mentioned earlier, today is World Ocean Day, and this week saw David Attenborough host a screening of his new documentary Ocean in Brussels to help draw attention to the urgent need to protect the oceans. Next week sees a UN Ocean Conference aimed at accelerating efforts to conserve and sustainably use the oceans. One of the big issues is, of course, pollution, and both plastic waste and microplastics have a huge impact on the creatures living in the oceans. Plastic pollution is expected to triple by 2040, with a potential 25 million metric tons of plastic waste making its way into the sea each year. But now a team of researchers in Japan have developed a new type of plastic, which is specifically designed to disintegrate in salt water. Researchers from the RIKEN Centre for the Emergency Matter Science at the University of Tokyo say their new material's different from something that's simply biodegradable. Takuzo Aida is the research lead on the project.
When it comes into contact with salt, it will break down into its original raw materials. Then, these raw materials themselves can be decomposed by bacteria, meaning that they ultimately return to the environment as safe substances.
Meanwhile, at the University of Sydney, researchers have identified a fungus that could play a role in breaking down more traditional plastics in what could be a significant breakthrough for plastic waste. Ali Abbas is Professor of Chemical Engineering at Sydney University and says the marine fungus they've discovered could be important, particularly when it comes to plastics like polypropylene.
Typically, plastics are very well known to be degrading over many years and even decades. This research has been showing that, in fact, fungi are able to degrade plastics much faster. The fungi produce enzymes that naturally break down materials like plastics, because this is nature's way of doing things. But from an industrial perspective, biology works at lower temperatures. Therefore, it is less energy intensive.
Takugama is one of the world's most famous chimpanzee sanctuaries. It's in Sierra Leone, and apart from serving as a refuge for rescued chimpanzees, it's also become a hugely popular tourist destination. There are currently over 120 chimps in this protected corner of the rainforest who've mainly suffered mistreatment, been rescued from poachers or separated from their families in the wild. However, the sanctuary is at risk as housing developments have begun to encroach on the space needed for the rehabilitation of the chimpanzees, and as a result, the facility's closed to tourists. Legendary primatologist and inspiration for the movie Gorillas in the Mist, Dr. Jane Goodall, told Sky News this week that urgent action's needed to protect an important resource.
We've seen the same situation happening around Gombe National Park, where we're still studying the chimpanzees. And the problem is human population growth and refugees coming from other parts and poverty. So Bala is doing what we have done, which is to try and improve the lives of the local communities so that they can find ways of living without destroying the environment. These are our closest living relatives. We share 98.7% of our DNA with them. But wildlife across Africa is disappearing. And because we depend on healthy ecosystems for our very lives, somehow we have to resolve this dilemma between feeding and caring for people and the need to also care for wildlife.
Still to come on the Sunday 7 in association with Metro, we learn how to make the world's smallest violin and meet a pizzly bear.
Right after this.
Did you know that foreign investors are quietly funding lawsuits in American courts through a practice called third-party litigation funding? Shadowy overseas funders are paying to sue American companies in our courts, and they don't pay a dime in U.S. taxes if there is an award or settlement. They profit tax-free from our legal system, while U.S. companies are tied up in court, and American families pay the price, to the tune of $5,000 a year. But there is a solution. A new proposal before Congress would close this loophole and ensure these foreign investors pay taxes, just like the actual plaintiffs have to. It's a common-sense move that discourages frivolous and abusive lawsuits and redirects resources back into American jobs, innovation, and growth. Only President Trump and congressional Republicans can deliver this win for America and hold these foreign investors accountable. Contact your lawmakers today and demand they take a stand to end foreign-funded litigation abuse.
Welcome back.
If you've ever complained too much about something, you'll be familiar with the near-universal finger gesture, no, not that one, the thumb and forefinger rubbing together, which of course symbolises someone playing the world's smallest violin. Well, bad news if you're not a fan of that symbol of minimal sympathy, because scientists at Loughborough University have been hard at work creating the actual instrument. They've used nanotechnology to build a violin that's made of platinum and measures just 37 microns long and 13 microns wide. You'll remember, of course, like I just did, that a micron is a millionth of a metre, and a human hair typically measures at about 100 microns wide, so we're talking quite small indeed. The team weren't just doing it for fun though, it's partly to demonstrate the university's new nanolithography system, which allows them to create and study structures at nanoscale. Professor of Experimental Physics at Loughborough University, Kelly Morrison, explains.
The nanofraser is what we call a thermal scanning probe microscope. It allows you to effectively write patterns or draw very, very small structures in different types of materials. It's like this very, very, very small needle that can see atomic interactions. What we do is we take that needle and we heat it up. So now it can not only see the surface with atomic resolution, but it can burn away material. Because it can burn away material, we can use it to write patterns.
This tech could be critical when it comes to developing the next generation of computing devices. Dr. Naemi is a future leader fellow at Loughborough, and she helps to put the size of the nano violin into context.
Another comparison we can make is of the size of the violin to the size of a tardigrade, or small water bear, and they have a size of about 50 to 1,200 microns. So if you had a small tardigrade, they might be able to play the violin.
We're used to electric cars these days and those irritatingly fast but silent electric scooters, but how far would you be happy to go in an electric aeroplane? Let's face it, it's not a situation where you can pull in at a rest stop and charge up while you grab a coffee. Air travel's considerably more complex. Well, this week saw a US company called Beta Technologies score a first when it comes to electric air travel. They successfully landed an all-electric aircraft at JFK Airport in New York. Company CEO is Clarke, and he says it could be transformative.
So this is a 100% electric airplane that just flew from East Hampton to JFK with passengers on it, which was a first for the New York Port Authority for the New York area, and we covered 70 odd nautical miles in 35 minutes. The most transformative thing is that you drastically reduce the cost of flying. Charging this thing up and flying out here cost us about $8 in fuel, right? Of course, you have to pay for the pilot, you got to pay for the airplane, but fundamentally it's way less expensive, it's quieter, so the communities are happier, it's a simpler aircraft, so you're quiet, you're accessible, and people love flying it. If you ask the passengers how they liked it, we could talk to each other the whole time, there's no propeller in front of you, there's no jet engine, it's just a quiet whooshing across the plane.
We bloomin' love an animal story here at the Sunday 7, whether it's a new breed of fish or a rare mammal saved from extinction, but our love of the animal kingdom is nothing compared to the bright, fiery love that British naturalist and explorer Steve Backshall has burning inside of him. The good news is that precious resource has been tapped and channeled into a new podcast called That's Just Wild. It sees Steve, alongside wildlife biologist Lizzie Daly and journalist Sarah Roberts, go all in on their wildlife obsession. Steve spoke to Times Radio this week and filled us in on some of the topics for episode 1.
Sarah talks quite a lot about the fact that polar bears are now hybridising with brown bears into so-called pizzly or growler bears because they're being driven south off the sea ice onto land. They're coming into contact with this other species, which they didn't actually split off from that far away in evolutionary history. It's probably only a couple of 100,000 years ago, so they're quite closely related. And these strange patchy, dirty, brown-looking polar bears are now roaming over the land and through rubbish tips and out onto the ice. It's an unexpected effect of our ever-changing climate.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
Did you know that foreign investors are quietly funding lawsuits in American courts through a practice called third-party litigation funding? Shadowy overseas funders are paying to sue American companies in our courts, and they don't pay a dime in U.S. taxes if there is an award or settlement. They profit tax-free from our legal system, while U.S. companies are tied up in court, and American families pay the price, to the tune of $5,000 a year. But there is a solution. A new proposal before Congress would close this loophole and ensure these foreign investors pay taxes, just like the actual plaintiffs have to. It's a common-sense move that discourages frivolous and abusive lawsuits and redirects resources back into American jobs, innovation, and growth. Only President Trump and congressional Republicans can deliver this win for America and hold these foreign investors accountable. Contact your lawmakers today and demand they take a stand to end foreign-funded litigation abuse.